Oh well, that didn't go as per script that India hoped for. Or in a way we can say that it followed the script that many of us would have expected and predicted it to go along with. Welcome to Express Sports Podcast. You're listening to our Border Gavaskar Trophy Special episode. Vinayakk Mohanarangan is with me, Mihir Vasavda. And at the end of today's episode, like yesterday, you'll be listening to the observations from our man on ground in Adelaide, Sriram Veera. Before we move to that, however, Vinayakk, it isn't a 2-day match, but it is like maybe 2-day, 1 session, or if it stretches a little bit, 2 days, 2 session test match. Another disaster. I mean, like we've discussed yesterday, right? How many different ways can you spin India's batting performance and say things in a new way? So we'll maybe hold off on that and perhaps start with the hero of day 2, Travis Head.
Yeah, the good thing about Travis Head doing well for Australia, especially against India, is that we get the opportunity to pun with so many headlines.
And like you have, right? What was it?
Travis Headache for India. And we did the World Cup one as well, right? Head breaks hearts.
Head breaks hearts.
Yeah. He's not new to this. He's done this to India quite a few times. The World Test Championship final, the World Cup final most recently. Well, I guess most recently it is today. It's just that it seems like he has something special up his sleeve every time he plays India and steps up. Yeah, I mean, fabulous knock again today. Completely changed the match. I thought India started the day well. You know, getting the wicket of Mick Sweeney early. Once again, Bumrah doing the trick. I think third or fourth over of the day, if I recall. Steve Smith once again struggling against Bumrah. Strange dismissal down the leg side. He's been known to get strangled down that line in the past as well. So that was another nice and early gift for India. And Bumrah again. But yeah, once those two, they couldn't capitalize on those 2 wickets, and it was the Travis Head show after that.
The Australia batting part was interesting because, again, without Bumrah, you'd kind of wonder what India would be as a team. I mean, flat with batting, the bowling doesn't really inspire that much confidence when Bumrah isn't around. Ashwin, I thought, was quite interesting today. He had a mixed day. Funny how Mitch Marsh, it averaged out, right? The controversial DRS decision, and then him not choosing DRS when he actually got out. What do you make of that, though? The pad first or bat first controversy with Mitch Marsh.
Well, I think Matthew Hayden summed it up perfectly on air. Why do we get all the clear visuals after the decision is made?
Exactly, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the proper slow motion that showed the ball hitting the pad first came after the TV umpire had made up his mind, which is, I mean, it looked like pad first even otherwise. Strange one. I'm seeing a lot of these days. I think it's kind of bizarre. But I think, like, even if that was seen as pad first, I think it was impact umpire's call, so might have been knocked out anyway, I think.
India would have kept the review at least.
Yeah, I think they might have kept the review actually. I was seeing later they still had 2 reviews left. So I'm a little confused about that part. The one thing that you mentioned there briefly, India being flat without Bumrah, I think 1 million or more than 1 million hearts might have sunk in that second ball, when that second new ball was taken and Bumrah went down on the field clutching what seemed to be the groin area mid-over, and I think for a moment, I think no one cared about the result of the test match. Well, this is a gone case anyway, so just hope that it's nothing serious for Bumrah. But I mean, luckily for India, I hope it's not serious. It did look like a cramp eventually as he got back up and bowled again, and did get the wicket of Cummins as well later. So hopefully it's nothing serious. Hopefully it was just cramp, because we've been hearing it's very humid and hot and all that. Yeah, and I mean, if India losing this test is one thing, it seems to be a given at the moment. But if India lose Bumrah, then the next 3 matches are going to feel very long, but could well be very short.
If Bumrah, he's ruled out, and we don't want any speculations. It's just a joke that we were having internally in our office group. And the bet that Vinayakk has been kind of waging, and he's inspiring and kind of cajoling others to put wagers on what will be the outcome of this series, he just like had a disclaimer on our group that if Bumrah is out injured and if he's by chance ruled out of the next test or even the series, no one gets to change their outcome. So I guess it's nice even from that point of view that our bets are still safe within our team. But I'll go back to the DRS controversy. It again and again feels like, how we see in football. And after every match, there is this whole outrage over VAR and referee's decision being questioned and analyzed, overanalyzed maybe. With regards to what Hayden said, I kind of also, it'll be nice if someone can, maybe we'll find out in the coming days, because I always believe that the umpire had access to multiple angles, and what we saw on our TVs wasn't the only angle that he saw. Unless that's changed now, I'm surprised. I mean, anyway, chalo, it didn't really affect a lot in terms that Mitch Marsh wasn't out there for a long time after that controversy. Travis Head, pretty fascinating. I strongly urge our listeners to read Sriram Veera's report on Head's innings, and a couple of really interesting observations there. One is about Mohammad Siraj calling the former India bowling coach Bharat Arun and asking for tips on a particular way to bowl at left-handers, which was aimed at Travis Head, the request. And then on the morning of day 2, Veera observed that R. Ashwin was out an hour earlier, as players usually do for warm-ups. And even though there were 2 right-handers, starting the day for Australia, he was constantly trying to probe the line which would ideally bowl to left-handers. And that, he says, showed that, India knew who their arch nemesis would be in this test match and also in this series. And he did turn out to be that.
Yeah, there was another point that they were discussing during the tea time show and even during the commentary itself on why India are not using the bouncer option against Head. He is known to have a weakness against short ball. It is something that was discussed to death during the WTC final as well, when he played well and India didn't really test him with the short ball stuff.
You mean they should have targeted his head?
See, this is the good thing about Travis Head doing well. We're finding the bright spots.
I know, right?
Yeah, and I think Gavaskar said they should have, and Hayden also agreed. I think the point was the square boundaries are quite short in Adelaide, so that probably played a part in India not wanting to feed him the short ball and, him just clearing the fence with ease. They did try. There was a graphic that showed there was probably 4 bouncers around his head region and nothing else that high. It's a strange one. I don't know if India have quite figured out what to do with Travis Head. There were a couple of drop catches as well. Siraj should have held on to that. I mean, I know it's not easy always to go back to take a catch over your shoulder. There was one where, for some reason, Rohit Sharma was standing at second slip and there was a gap between him and Pant and the ball just harmlessly went through between the two of them, neither of them going for it. He keeps getting beaten outside the off stump. We saw that during the World Cup final as well, where, India, Bumrah especially, does manage to find this odd delivery that beats him, but it doesn't take the edge. It's a very strange one. I mean, and I think Head is also not one for technically correct cricket. It's what works for him. He's all hands. I think Sandeep ji had written a beautiful piece after the World Cup final only, I think, on how he is so dependent on his forearms and the way his hands move is more important than the way his feet move, which is not how you are taught to play cricket, but it works for him and it's his method and he makes it work. Especially against India, he just somehow gets it to work almost invariably. He played really well in Perth also, you need to remember. In that drubbing, he was the bright spark. And I remember thinking that point of time that, if Head hits form, then it might not help them in Perth, but it's going to be a problem for India going forward. And I think he's pretty much sealed the game in their favour today, especially with what happened in the final session.
You mentioned how the ball flew between Pant and the first slip, and I wanted to kind of touch upon 2 aspects there. I mean, the fielding placement through the day that Rohit preferred, and also India's fielding hasn't really been the best. I mean, a lot of things are wrong with the team right now. But the fielding, certainly, the number of catches that are being put down, Pant's keeping, I thought, has been pretty okay. And just the frustration actually stems from the fact that we've, talked about this in the past, is when things aren't really going their way, Rohit's captaincy sometimes seems a little flat. Again, I use this word because there isn't a lot of proactiveness, and it was just apparent today, time after time, in terms of his bowling changes, fielding placements, and everything else. Do you feel that way?
I felt that way, especially during the New Zealand series. And I think even Rohit came out and said, I'll put my hand up and admit that tactically I got stuff wrong. I mean, okay, so Rohit's style has always been a little laid back. He's never been one to proactively, change too many things. I think Kohli was a little bit trigger happy, so to speak. I think Nazir Hussain once said during an India-England series, Kohli has this tendency to follow the ball. Like if edge goes somewhere, then he'll put a fielder there, right? The next ball. So Kohli was very proactive, but sometimes a little too much. But Rohit seems to be on the other side of the spectrum. I think, there is a sense that, I don't know, today, especially like you said, the word is, I think, flat. It's hard to understand when, the fielders get pushed out quite early. That when Head was even playing well, that whole slip cordon didn't make sense to me.
Exactly.
I don't know why there was such a big gap, especially with Rohit and, Pant. Neither of them are, Pant has known to dive in the past, but here in this test, he's been struggling for some reason to get his dives right. So I don't know if Rohit thought he could be able to cover that gap. These are things that don't make sense to me. They probably have some plans in the background that
we don't know.
Go into these things, but we don't know. And it's starting to, I think Veera did write before the series that, there's a lot riding on the series for someone like Rohit and Kohli in terms of their test future. And given what we've seen of Rohit's batting so far in both innings and the general worry around his captaincy with the last 4 tests that he's led in, I think, there are going to be questions, I think, more sharper questions that's probably coming his way. We can't just say that, this is just one-off. It's clearly not a one-off.
It's not.
Now, against New Zealand, you've lost 3 tests and you're on the verge of losing this test. So that's the last 4 tests that he's captained in that India are losing. So, something would have to be done about that, I guess. So let's quickly, I think we've kind of overshot our time limit. Let's quickly talk about the final session that, all the any hope that Indian fans might have had, I think, evaporated in the last 1 hour or so.
Exactly. And, the perfect segue that we've given is Virat and Rohit. Chalo, it's a different topic altogether, their future and what they bring to the table. That's perhaps, the debate will rage on in the days to come in the analysis of this test match. But it was beautiful, I thought, the way Boland set up Kohli, constantly bowling those 5 balls. It takes incredible accuracy levels to just keep on bowling there until he finally found the edge. And Rohit, from the first moment he came out, he didn't look himself. He didn't look comfortable at all. You could just easily say that he's a guest for maximum 10-12 balls, and that's what happened. Gill, the ball was good, I think, but it could have been. It wasn't an unplayable delivery. He could have dealt with it in a better way. KL Rahul, we can just go on and on.
Just one thing to add about Rohit, I think we've seen that also quite a few times. I think Saudi got him out the exact same way in the New Zealand series, if I'm not wrong. Henry too got him out. That dismissal has just, he makes these balls look unplayable almost, I'm starting to think. Top of off is great. It's nothing to take away from Cummins, but Rohit has been getting out that way quite a few times. It makes me wonder if his trust in his defensive technique is not there anymore. The bowlers try to hit top of off all the time, but that is the sort of line that you need to be covering, which I'm not sure if Rohit is able to. So that's just one technical thing that I thought probably relevant here.
Of course, all these things we'll be discussing in the days to come as we see what happens. So, what happens in this test matches, I guess, will take something remarkable for things to change and India to kind of, snatch even a draw or get a win from the situation they are in right now. And the other things too we'll be analyzing in depth. But I think that's that for today's episode. We'll leave you with these observations by Sriram Veera. Like I said, he is a man in Adelaide covering this series, and this is what he had to say to wrap up day 2.
What many feared would happen in the first test in Perth is now finally happening at Adelaide. First test, of course, India sparkled, and now things have just turned the Australian way. A wonderful 100 from Travis, but not just because it was an aggressive playing the shots. The highlights might give you that impression, which it was. But the way he went about it, the clever, he has a lovely method where he sort of goes, retreats to his position and then makes the lens different. What is full length for the other batsman, he makes a shot and stuff like that. He just doesn't leave his method. He trusts his method, and from there he just flayed the Indians all over. Wonderful crowd, home crowd for him, and especially the fans at the Hill. That's the hill is the grass bank area near the old scoreboard that you might have seen on television, where people stand. It's also the cheapest tickets because the sitting seats are less and you can stand more there. And they really enjoyed shouting and chanting his name. The second one, the other lesser cult hero, but he's too is a hero of sorts, Scott Boland. They kept chanting his name, Boland, Boland, as he ran through, and he picked up Jaiswal first ball and then of his first delivery, and then Virat Kohli, of course, the big fish. So complete Australian day. There was an incident, of course, with Siraj, which had but quite didn't like it. He came to the press conference and said about how he was completely caught off guard by that. He didn't expect at all because nothing up to that point had led him to this situation. And he made sure that he kept saying I was disappointed and stuff. And he also said his own reaction when he also used the F word. He said, I shouldn't have used that, but it essentially came from Siraj. But all that is aside, it's the day India were left wondering about the bowling resources. At one point, Bumrah went down. Luckily, it was just cramps. But that moment made thought, ooh, what happens if he really gets injured? The word was Devendra Pandya, our colleague, has just broken the news that Mohammad Shami's fitness will be assessed. And if he gets an NCA okay, he will be here. And I have get a feeling they will be giving him okay pretty soon. I don't think he can make it up for the next test. But India would definitely need him for the later on, because it's probably India made a selection error in not getting Akashdeep, who seemed to suit this pink ball and who bowled pretty well at the nets, it must say. You're troubling Rohit and everything, but somehow I think they went with the winning change in the end. They didn't want to change the team, which wanted Perth perhaps, but they went with it. But that meant it left a gap of energy and plan and purpose on this day. Siraj had a beautiful day with the ball. Never mind his run-in with head at the end of it. He had a very good bowling day, but still, India are way behind. The batsmen have been again asked questions with the ball moving around, and not many have answers to it. We have seen that in the past, and we continue to see that. Rishabh Pant was refreshing. He chose to attack, and so did Nitish Reddy, who continues to impress and grow on this tour. The rest too have to, if they have to come back and bounce. But let's see what happens tomorrow.
You were listening to Express Sports by The Indian Express. This show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargav. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.